Watch this.
St. Luke's civil case against Ammon Bundy is headed to the state Supreme Court. Not to be decided, but because his local sheriff is afraid to serve him papers. The Treasure Valley has a dry city. Well, sort of. Want a glass of beer or wine? That's fine. Something more potent? That's a problem. And one Middleton man is trying to change this archaic city code. Birds, and, well, more birds. We'll see what the World Center for Birds of Prey looked like almost 3 decades ago versus today. It's not a bird's eye view of their latest expansion, but it still looks pretty good from the ground. Okay, so you remember this? A little more than a year ago outside St. Luke's in downtown Boise, a group of people protesting the removal of a child from his parents after he was determined to be malnourished and in imminent danger. The Baby Cyrus protest was organized by the young boy's grandfather, Diego Rodriguez, and his friend, Ammon Bundy, who was also a candidate for governor at the time. The morning after the infant was hospitalized at St. Luke's in Meridian, on March 12th, Ammon Bundy was arrested for trespassing because he refused to leave the hospital. Bundy and his People's Rights Network then organized days of protests at the St. Luke's in Boise, claiming the boy was, quote, medically kidnapped by doctors and Child Protective Services. The protests led to the hospital having to go into lockdown for nearly 2 hours on March 15th of 2022. They had to divert patients to other providers. They wouldn't let anyone into the hospital to visit any of their patients. Then on May 11th of that year, St. Luke's and a couple of their doctors filed a lawsuit against Ammon Bundy and his campaign, Diego Rodriguez and his Freedom Man Press and Political Action Committee, and the People's Rights Network. They claimed there was a concerted effort to disrupt hospital business. They were making false statements about CPS and the hospital and its staff, and they were all attacked online. So the goal of the lawsuit is to stop this harassment and get the false and defamatory stuff posted online taken down, neither of which has happened, which is why attorneys for St. Luke's filed a motion for contempt back in February of this year. They also want a judge to allow them to ask for punitive damages of $7.5 million. Now, during this time, other than pleading guilty to the original charge of trespass at St. Luke's and Meridian, Ammon Bundy has refused to show up or participate in any of the proceedings related to this lawsuit. And it's gotten to the point where the Gem County Sheriff, where Bundy lives, has refused to participate in delivering papers to Bundy, out of fear, he says. So yesterday, St. Luke's filed a writ of mandamus, which is with the Idaho Supreme Court, taking it directly to the state's highest court for the first time to get the sheriff's office to do its duty. The county sheriff is required by Idaho code to deliver all civil court paperwork, the service of process, they call it. That would include, notice of liens, evictions, and lawsuits. Well, today we sat down with the St. Luke's attorney to talk about the case and where it stands now.
We allege in the complaint that Bundy is involved in really a grift, that he's a conflict entrepreneur and he makes money out of marketing these controversies. We strongly believe that while there was a serious incident with this infant that desperately needed medical care, Bundy, Rodriguez, and PRN took that tragic circumstance and turned it into a money-making operation. They ginned up a false conspiracy. They marketed it aggressively. They continue to market it to this day. And we believe that the motivation behind all of it is money. And that's why we call it a grift.
A couple times there have been hearings on this case. It's a civil case, but there have been hearings at court where he has just not shown up. Is that correct?
Yes. Mr. Bundy has never shown up for any of the proceedings, and there's been many.
And so in order to notify him that he must be in court or must answer these questions or even show up for a deposition, you guys have to notify him of this.
That's correct. And it's multiplied based on the fact that he's continuing to harass folks, we believe, and continuing to take wrongful actions, which then precipitate us making another motion to the court to try and get relief. So it's a cycle that we believe Mr. Bundy has created by not showing up and by continuing to act wrongfully.
By continuing, Stidham says, to post pictures and names of those involved in the Baby Cyrus incident online, like on this website run by the child's grandfather, Diego Rodriguez, who's also named in the lawsuit. The other wrinkle to this is in serving all of these papers, you guys have to use the sheriff's office, Gem County Sheriff's Office.
The first problem is, given Mr. Bundy's nature, there's only a small number of private process servers who are willing to take this on from the outset.
What do you mean his nature?
Well, the fact that he threatens and the fact that he doxes. So they're threatened by that, and also threatened by the fact that the man has a history of violent confrontation. So we had a small subset of process servers who were willing to take on the task. And we, of course, used them initially. But some fell out because Bundy threatened them. And then some fell out because Bundy made trespass complaints to the sheriff. Then we did use the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office did help us with process serving. About a week ago, when Mr. Bundy was served with papers by the deputies of the sheriff's office, that became very confrontational.
Which led to this letter from last week, written by the Gem County Sheriff. Sheriff Donnie Wonder said he spoke with Bundy by phone on April 10th, and he told him he felt threatened by all the papers being served on him, and he believes Bundy is at his breaking point. And because of that, Sheriff Wonder says there's a potential for someone getting hurt, a risk he wasn't willing to take over a civil issue.
His concern was for the safety of his deputies, and he took the position that he was no longer going to be assisting in this.
When you don't have access to a private entity to serve these papers, that's kind of the sheriff's job, right?
Well, it's the sheriff's job regardless of whether you have access. That's a statutory duty that's assigned to the sheriff.
So when you see the sheriff say, out of fear of safety, I mean, is that unusual?
It is unusual, and I'll say my clients are very sympathetic to that because we do believe Bundy is violent. But our perspective is, while the sheriff's concerns are legitimate, that his statutory duty requires him to do this, we have the right to proceed in the legal process against Mr. Bundy. And also, given the risk of violence with Mr. Bundy, it should be the sheriff that's handling this.
I've read some of Bundy's stuff, even recently. I mean, he claims he's not a violent person.
He says he's not a violent person, but he'll say something like, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not a violent man, but I'm at my breaking point. There was one video he posted relating to our lawsuit.
And I haven't responded one bit to them. And I have my reasons for not, and we talked about it if you're interested, but
Yeah.
I haven't responded. I just throw it right in the garbage. But then they have like servers that come here all the time knocking on the door serving papers. They have the Gem County Sheriff's Department coming here all the time knocking, and now they're using FedEx to make deliveries. It's crazy. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This is one time to the mail. This happens multiple times a week.
Where he said, you know, I'm not a violent man, but if you try and come and collect your money, you're going to meet me and my friends with shotguns.
I'm making moves.
Bundy said this in an interview with the blog Idaho Dispatch.
And if I have to, meet them on the front door with my, friends and shotgun, I'll do that, right? They're not going to take my property.
So he said that. Eric Stidham says Bundy has been served so many times for several reasons. He's named and in charge of several other entities that are also named in the lawsuit, including his campaign, the People's Rights Network, and another business based in Wyoming. And every time he refuses to show up or cooperate, well, that begins a whole other series of filings that then legally have to be delivered to Mr. Bundy. Stidham says, with this latest filing, they are asking the state Supreme Court to overturn the Gem County Sheriff's interpretation of Idaho's trespass law to not allow process servers on Bundy's property. They're also asking the court to direct Sheriff Wonder to comply with what they believe is his statutory duty to serve this paperwork. The Gem County Sheriff declined to speak with us today about this case, and our emails and phone calls to Ammon Bundy went unanswered until just moments ago because, well, there was another hearing related to this case in Ada County today. And guess who wasn't there? So the judge is going to issue a warrant of attachment to bring Mr. Bundy in for arraignment on his contempt charge, and his bail was set at $10,000. And Mr. Bundy sent me a text message in response to the phone call that I sent to him. He said, did you hear that they issued a warrant for my arrest today, $10,000 bond for not participating in a civil case? Why doesn't the judge just rule that St. Luke's wins the case? They must want more from me than money, is what he said. When I asked him if he was going to surrender or comply, I've yet to see a response. But the plan is Bundy will be taken into custody and brought before a judge. And my question is, and I'm sure your question as well, if that's up to the Gem County Sheriff to do that, I wonder how that's going to go. We all know how Idaho loves its local control. You know, states' rights over federal rights, county law over the state, even city code before, well, we refer to county. But we like the small, we like it local, which is why when the 21st Amendment repealed prohibition, Idaho left it up to each city to decide what to do with it for themselves. Well, Middleton decided to green light beer and wine, but draw a line on the hard alcohol. And they've had this law on the books since 1947. Today, it's against the law for a bar or restaurant in Middleton to serve a cocktail that contains hard alcohol. And that's even if they do have a liquor license. Well, now a group of Middletonians, we'll go with that. They want to change that because they say liquor by the drink would benefit the whole entire town. Here's Andrew Bartline.
Middleton, aptly named after finding itself in the middle of a once popular travel route, but in the middle of town today. They're now in the middle of liquor laws.
Most people don't.
This is Adam Kenyon, and he owns
So
the Shack.
a lot of people come in and don't even know that this was a liquor dry city.
Unless you're looking to fuel up and grab a bottle to go, liquor's only dry at the bars per city code. It's been that way since the 1940s, pushing patrons next door.
For the people that don't necessarily want a beer or a wine, they have to leave Middleton and go to Star, and they're spending their money outside of the city.
Keep Middleton dollars in Middleton.
Matt Watkins is part of a group looking to change that city code and put it up to a vote of the people.
We need 940 signatures to make that happen based off the numbers I have from Canyon County.
These numbers have to come from residents inside city limits,
Right.
leading to an expected loss.
In my opinion, I'd sure like to see 1,300 to 1,500. The more people that can come out, the better.
Because Matt says this is for the better of the community.
Commercial rooftops fund a lot more than residential do to help bring that tax revenue in to fund the city, public works, the police department, so on and so forth.
And those commercial rooftops, they invest in communities who support their business model.
Most restaurants do offer a craft cocktail menu or a cocktail menu. And for most businesses in that fact, yes, it is a huge deal. It is a huge deal, and it's been a factor that has prevented some businesses from coming here.
It's also prevented current business from expanding,
Just hoping that we get with the times at this point.
leaving them caught in the middle,
It's about time.
asking for signatures to pull them out.
We ask just about every single person, and at this point, a lot of regulars have already signed it, but we ask just about every single person that walks in.
The group calls themselves Middleton Liquor by the Drink, so not a whole lot left to the imagination there, and they need those 940 signatures or so by May 1st. Again, only people who live in Middleton city limits can sign and qualify for that. And if they get those signatures, Brian, it would go on the November election ballot, the general election,
Okay.
November, I should say. And so that's the process they're looking to do.
It might be a little easier if they come up with a better slogan than the Middleton Liquor by the Drink group, I guess.
Well, there's no questions. I mean, I'll give them that. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but you know exactly what they're doing when you talk to them.
All right, we'll see how that plays out in November, possibly, if they get the 940. All right, thank you, Andrew. All right, if you've been keeping up, you know we've been diving into the KTVB Exploring Idaho archives to celebrate our upcoming 70th anniversary. Today, we're going to take you to the World Center for Birds of Prey back in April of 1994.
High on a hill overlooking Boise is the Peregrine Fund World Center for the Birds of Prey. It is a unique research facility and species bank for rare birds from all over the world. Now in its 10th year at this location, the center has recently expanded. The Velma Morrison Interpretive Center was designed to handle the increasing number of visitors who want to learn more about birds of prey.
She uses that hook beak to tear meat once she's caught her prey.
Behind the scenes, the main focus of this facility is research. The ongoing recovery efforts here are part of a program that was started over 20 years ago, when it was discovered that the peregrine falcon was being threatened by the pesticide DDT. Out of his desire to save this superb winged hunter, the Peregrine Fund was born. Techniques of captive breeding and monitored releases were developed over the years, and now the falcons once again soar in increasing numbers over much of the United States. Nearly half of the peregrines produced at the World Center are a result of artificial insemination. Cal Sanford, a propagation specialist for the center, collects semen from a male peregrine falcon. The bird is trained to release his sperm on a specially constructed hat.
Once we get the semen from the bird, we collect it in a capillary tube. Now we've got a large quantity of relatively high-quality semen to do an artificial insemination on a non-breeding female.
The fertilized eggs are collected from the nest after 7 days of natural incubation.
Okay, after we remove the eggs from the incubating adults, we bring them into the incubation room. We place them in the incubators. They'll be incubated for approximately 31.5 days. And hopefully, if all goes well, then the egg will pip.
Cal's efforts are rewarded. And now he has 2 hungry mouths to feed every few hours. In only 45 days, these 2 young peregrines will be fully feathered and ready for their new home in the wild.
So once we had success with the peregrine and saw that these procedures would work for a number of birds of prey, we developed a number of recovery programs that are designed along the same lines as the peregrine. It's to breed birds in captivity and release them into the wild.
Along with the captive breeding program, worldwide conservation efforts are being attempted in the wild.
We're working in Africa, in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, in Madagascar.
One of the greatest concerns facing man today is the loss of the rich diversity of life that exists in the world. An incredible group of biologists and others who have a special love for these birds have dedicated their lives to meeting the challenge.
Birds of prey are rather romantic species of wildlife. Many of them exist in the most remote places and the most spectacular places, such as the highest cliffs. They're not dominated really by anything, even to include gravity, in that they can fly. They are the embodiment of many things that humans value. Courage, freedom. They're a rather incredible group of birds.
You know, bird has been more than just a word here on the 208 lately. We've told you about the California condor crisis. Yesterday, we talked about osprey building nests and mating. Today, it's all about the birds of prey. The World Center for Birds of Prey is expanding once again, just shy of 3 decades after the expansion we just told you about. And the grand opening is in this weekend, I should say. It's happening this weekend just in time, well, for Earth Day, which is coming up on Friday. Here's Joe Paris.
The World Center for Birds of Prey is the headquarters of the Peregrine Fund. Now, the Peregrine Fund is a nonprofit organization that works all over the world on behalf of raptors, or birds of prey.
Tate Mason is director of the World Center for Birds of Prey. He says the longtime Boise Center is fully set to launch a new expansion.
When somebody visits the World Center for Birds of Prey, they're visiting an active conservation organization. We've got projects in at least 27 countries around the world. And when students or visitors come here, we create the World Center for Birds of Prey as a lens, as a portal into the projects around the world.
Conservation work here has greatly impacted the world of birds in an amazing way. And that's recognized with the new feature exhibit, Front and Center, that is a look back to the early days.
Our first project was the recovery of the peregrine falcon, one of the most successful conservation stories of all time. Well, one of the new additions is this amazing art wall behind me, the Inspiration Wall, an original piece by artist Ross Madison. It's just one of the most inspiring pieces of art that I think I've ever seen.
This Welcome Center sets the tone for visitors, new and returning.
We thought long and hard about how we wanted people to experience the World Center for Birds of Prey. So we have this expansive open entryway, a personal greeting from somebody that you'll meet when you come in, and then we start off with that successful conservation story, the peregrine falcon. And so the peregrine falcon exhibit is just right up front, the first thing you're gonna see when you come in. Here we have a peregrine falcon. This is a South American subspecies of a peregrine.
Just around the corner is a space that will be a birds of prey learning ground for generations to come. The Open Sky Theater will help tell the stories that perpetuate the existence of birds of prey. Take the inaugural mission of the Peregrine Fund as an example story. It's one that still has a lot of impact today.
The recovery of the peregrine falcon really positively affected all 10,000 species of birds on planet Earth because of the removal of DDT from the landscape, the identification of widespread poisoning of wildlife. That stuff has been fixed because of the restoration efforts on the peregrine falcon.
Unique perspectives and lessons continue at the Idaho Power Flight Lab. A real look into changes people have made to help keep their bird communities healthy.
Is an exhibit that explains the connection between Morley Nelson and Idaho Power and how they develop utility infrastructure that keeps raptors from getting electrocuted. These advancements that were made in the 1970s right here in Boise, Idaho, have been adopted worldwide and have saved countless raptors.
So coming up on April 22nd, this Saturday, Earth Day, the Peregrine Fund's World Center for Birds of Prey, 9 a.m. ribbon cutting. Brian, I know they're going to have a full day of events there. They'll have food. They'll have some special beer that's going to be brewed for this event. Ooh. So it's an IPA, I'm told. So it's a big event. It's pretty exciting. If you've never been out there before, go check it out with your family. It is one of those things only in Idaho.
And it's pretty cool because this is such a thing for Idaho. Mm-hmm. This World Center for Birds of Prey. It's done a lot for these birds. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So go check
around
it
the
out.
world.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe. All right, several comments today on what's happening with Ammon Bundy and the St. Luke's civil lawsuit against him, like this one from Dedman. At what point can or should the Gem County Sheriff's Office involve the FBI to handle a guy with whom they're too intimidated? And this next one probably answers that question. We don't need another Ruby Ridge, but justice also needs to be served. The Sheriff's Office has a sworn duty, says Andrea in Meridian. That's kind of the problem with this going forward. But this one is probably something that's crossed a lot of your minds today. Sheriff afraid of getting hurt? Sure hope a school shooter doesn't see an opportunity there. Supposed to face that kind of danger, I would understand. But we have more to talk about later this week on this. We'll see you then.